Welcome to Prop Tax Tutorials. I'm David Levan. Today we're going to talk about obsolescence. Now, obsolescence is a term thrown around in the property tax industry, but what is obsolescence? A common definition for obsolescence is the state of being that occurs when an object, service, or practice is no longer wanted, even though it may still be in good working condition. Think of the horse-drawn carriage. That's a good example of obsolescence. It suffers from obsolescence even though it may be in great working condition. It's generally not wanted as a form of transportation anymore. Another example is a typewriter. You may have a typewriter that's in pristine shape, but it's less desirable due to the personal computer, tablets, smartphones, other ways that you can communicate. Why is this important to property taxes? Well, property taxes are based on value. The value of your equipment and the value of your real estate. And obsolescence can significantly affect value, and it's something to consider when reviewing your property tax values. It isn't something the assessor's office is likely to contemplate unless you bring it to their attention. There are two types of obsolescence, functional and external. Functional obsolescence is the loss in value due to the inability to perform adequately or in the manner that the property did when it was first created. External obsolescence is the loss in value due to impairment by utility caused by factors external to the asset. So an easy way to look at this is functional obsolescence is caused by internal forces, external obsolescence is caused by external forces. Let me give you some examples of functional obsolescence in the real world. A multi-story processing plant is an example of real estate that suffers from functional obsolescence. Why does it experience functional obsolescence? Well, many years ago, processing facilities were commonly built as multi-story facilities, using gravity to move the product down through the floors. At the time, the multi-story design was considered very useful. But over time, there's been significant design changes and production improvements. Modern plants are typically built in a one-story layout for production flow. So an investor would likely pay less for a multi-story production than a facility that is a one-story facility, all things considered. Therefore, the multi-story facility suffers from functional obsolescence. The brick phone is an example of a piece of equipment that suffers from functional obsolescence. Do you remember the brick phone? It was huge, it was very cool in its day, and you could call your friends from it for about $3 a minute. Now, we all know that technological improvements have allowed new smartphones to function in a much more efficient and cheaper fashion than the brick phone. The brick phone is bulky, and last I heard you can't load apps on it. It suffers from functional obsolescence. By the way, does anyone out there still use a brick phone? Examples of external obsolescence are similar, except as the name suggests, external obsolescence is caused by factors external to the facility or equipment. Asbestos plants are a good example of external obsolescence. Prior to 1978, asbestos was used in all kinds of building construction. In 1978, it was deemed to cause cancer and banned in the U.S. How rapidly do you think the value of an asbestos producing plant fell on the news of the ban? That's an example of external obsolescence. Another example of external obsolescence on a smaller scale, actually a much smaller scale, is the Beanie Baby. Do you remember the craze for Beanie Babies when they first came out? Beanie Babies could be purchased for somewhere around $5. But then something really interesting happened. Due to high demand and low supply, the value soared for certain Beanie Babies. Do you remember Princess Di or Peanut the elephant? They became extremely rare and people paid hundreds of dollars for them. In fact, I know people who were investing in them. And then what happened? Demand fell and supply soared, and they were all worth about $5 again. An example of external obsolescence. The concept of obsolescence is important in determining value for property tax purposes. If your equipment or real estate is suffering from obsolescence, it should probably result in a lower value and subsequently lower property tax bill. The steps to accomplish this are identifying, quantifying, and reporting obsolescence. We'll cover these in future prop tax tutorials. Thanks for watching Prop Tax Tutorials, one of the many ways Advantax is demystifying property taxes.